Welcome to the nervous system. Let's see here. Oops, wrong button. Okay. The nervous system is a collection of specialized cells that conduct information to and from the brain. Some of the functions include control voluntary and involuntary activities of the body, that's conscious and unconscious activities, and provide for mental activities such as thought, emotion, learning, and memory. When we're talking about the nervous system, we divide it into two separate groups. We have the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and the spinal cords, and the peripheral nervous system, which is the nerves throughout the body. The central nervous system, as I said, consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is made up of many nerve cells that are involved in higher-end mental function. These higher functions include the ability to think, the ability to perform unconscious motor functions such as breathing and control of blood vessel diameter, and the ability to experience and express emotion. The brain is the location of the cranium, is located in the cranium where it's protected. The spinal cord is protected by the spinal column. The spinal column has a spinal canal, which is where the spinal cord sits. It actually travels through the foramen magnum, which is the large opening at the base of the skull, and down the spinal column. The central nervous system has additional protections by the meninges, a covering over the brain and spinal cord, and the cerebrospinal fluid, which is a clear liquid that is circulated continuously. Cerebrospinal fluid, often referred to as CSF, acts as a shock absorber for the central nervous system and provides a means for the exchange of nutrients and waste between the blood, brain, and the spinal cord. Another big thing to remember here, especially when you're talking about the spinal cord, the lower part of your brain and the upper part of the spinal cord is the control centers for your respiratory system. A common thing I was always taught was C3, 4, and 5, keep the diaphragm alive. That means cervical spine, cervical spine 3, 4, and 5, which is that specific area where the spinal cord sits, control the diaphragm. And then respirations are controlled at the base of the skull, which is where the cerebellum sits. The cerebrum is the largest part of the human brain, and it consists of two cerebral hemispheres, the right and the left. The corpus callosum is a very thick bundle of nerves, fibers, and joins the two hemispheres together. Although no area of the brain functions alone, each cerebral hemisphere is divided into 4 lobes named for the bones that lie over them. You have the frontal, the parietal, occipital, and temporal lobes. The frontal lobes control motor activity and integrate muscle activity. They also process speech and thought. The parietal lobes receive and process information about touch, taste, pressure, pain, heat, and cold. The occipital lobes receive and interpret visual information, and the temporal lobes receive auditory signals and interpret language. They are also involved in personality, behavior, motion, memory storage, things along those lines. The diencephalon is the part of the brain between the cerebrum and the brainstem. It contains the thalamus and hypothalamus. The thalamus functions as a relay station for impulses going to and from the cerebrum, and the hypothalamus plays an important role in the control of thirst, hunger, and something that you'll hear me refer to repeatedly is thermoregulation, or body temperature. It serves as a link between the nervous and endocrine system as well. The brainstem is made up of the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. The midbrain connects the pons and cerebellum with the cerebrum. It acts as a relay for auditory and visual signals. The pons, whose name means bridge, connects parts of the brain with one another by means of tracts. It influences respirations. And the medulla oblongata is the lowermost part of the brainstem. It joins the brainstem and the spinal cord and contains nerves that pass through the spinal cord to the brain and nerves that pass from the brain to the spinal cord. The medulla is involved in controlling blood vessel diameter, respiration, and centers that control reflexes such as coughing, swallowing, sneezing, and vomiting. Let's see here. The spinal cord relays electrical signals to and from the brain and peripheral nerves. Spinal cord is continuous with the medulla and is the center for many reflex activities of the body. Let's see here. Peripheral nervous system, referred to as PNS, consists of cranial nerves, which arise from the brain, and spinal nerves, which arise from the spinal cord. The nerves actually extend through the body. The nerves of the PNS connect the brain and spinal cord to the rest of the body. We have 12 pairs of cranial nerves that are linked together in the brain. The cranial nerves are involved in the senses such as vision, hearing, smell, and taste. They are also involved in eye, face, and tongue movement. Cranial nerves relay signals to and from the brain. Spinal nerves are any of 31 pairs of nerves that relay impulses to and from the spinal cord. There are 3 types of spinal nerves: sensory, motor, and mixed nerves. The cells of the nervous system are called neurons. Nerve cells or neurons are classified as sensory or motor neurons. Sensory neurons receive information from the body and send signals to the brain and spinal cord. The central nervous system's response is sent along motor neurons, allowing the body to respond to the sensory input. For example, when a person touches hot water, the sensory nerve signal travels up to the brain and then back down via motor neurons. It says, "Hey, this is hot." And this causes movement away from the hot water. The PNS has 2 divisions. The somatic, which is voluntary division, has receptors and nerves concerned with the external environment. It influences the activity of the musculoskeletal system. And then we have the autonomic, which is the involuntary division that has receptors and nerves concerned with the internal environment. It controls the involuntary systems of glands and smooth muscles and functions to maintain a steady state of the body. The idea of the autonomic nervous system is to maintain homeostasis. The autonomic division is further divided into the sympathetic division and parasympathetic division. The sympathetic division mobilizes energy, particularly in stressful situations, commonly referred to as the fight or flight response. Its effects are widespread throughout the body. For example, if a traumatic event occurs to you, maybe you're in a car accident, the fight or flight response kicks in. Your eyes dilate completely, heart rate increases, you are pumped, you're ready to do whatever you need to do. You have this huge epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine dump that gives you this energy. The parasympathetic division conserves and restores energy, and its effects are localized to the body.